Are you trying to do more in 2024? Register now. See the link below. You'll get a free month with Dr. Eric Thomas, one of my mentors. So go ahead, click that link. Your circle will change as you accomplish your goals and level up. Everybody can't go.
Listen, I told you, you made a mistake bringing me on this thing. I don't know what we're talking about, but I feel like everybody can't go. So, there you go. It's like rolling the dice, but I think we'll be okay. It's good to see you, Jess.
You too. All right, y'all. So, y'all see that we already bringing in the episode with a little bit of a twist in a new kind of way. We are kicking off the month of Black History and St. Valentine, the month of love. So, what I wanted to do for you guys, of course, I had to bring you an esteemed Black man who I respect, who is mature, who instills things in me literally on a daily basis, y'all. So, this is somebody that instills that positive stuff in me and that good teaching on a daily, as well as somebody who I say it, he don't claim this for himself, but I'm the one that said it. This is another one of the people that I consider a love guru. Now, yes, I do. I put the guru stamp on your boy. So I like to introduce all of you guys to LDH, the Anomaly, one of my coaches and half of the Marriage Ain't for Suckers podcast. What's going on, LDH?
Hey, listen, I figured I'd just add the little applause over there. Shout to Jess. I see it's Jessi. I get things mixed up, but yeah. It's a privilege to be with you, honestly.
I super appreciate it. I know you got a lot of things on your plate, and as do I, and taking the time out, I really appreciate it. I know that the fans and our viewers are going to appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off. So what do you have going on right now? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, well, tell the people, I know, but I need the people to know, because, I'm going to hype you up, and they like, So tell us about yourself and what you got going on at current.
Yeah, besides changing the world, nothing. That's all. Anything else? No, really, I am overcharged with changing people's lives. I don't even know how to say it well, but that's what I think about every single day I wake up. And I mean worldwide. And so, among the many things that I do, of course, you know that I'm a life and success coach. I'm a big-time media guy. That's a long story, but the most successful, and I've had some really successful podcasts in the last nearly 20 years, podcasts and radio programs. But the most successful one is a short one. It's only 10 minutes. It's on 200 radio stations. I said radio stations around the world, mainly in North America, but it's in Australia and some other places too, on the radio and then all these devices and stuff. And on the internet, multiple platforms, 30 platforms online. And so I'm excited about it because it's me hitting the target, because I've wanted a particular message that's in my bosom to go forward for decades. And God gave me the cheat code. Okay. And so now we can literally reach the planet. And then what I do on a daily basis is coaching, So people who need to be developed in 4 key areas, that's what I do all day, every day. Yeah. That's
okay, it. That's what's up. Two of the things that stuck out was that cheat code, and then also that you mentioned you've been building on this for 20 years. So I'm going to take you guys back all the way to episode 1. Remember when I told you guys that you have to build a solid foundation first? And once you're building on that foundation, that's when from there you can use that as a launch pad for that quantum leap forward. And again, remember, everybody's journey isn't going to be super quick. Everybody's isn't going to take a an extended amount of time, or the time be spread out wider. So take us into that a little bit, over that 20-year journey, and then getting to that cheat code. Like, what were some of the milestones in there, and that set you up for being able to take advantage of that cheat code when it was presented to you?
Yeah, I think brokenness helps. Like, pause. Like, brokenness helps because in my case, I grew up in New York City, and at a time when it was the murder capital of the United States of America. So in the 70s and 80s. And I'm a low key guy. I mean, you see me in rare form because I've worked on enthusiasm, because I'm really just chill, like a laid back person. And growing up in New York City with Quest, and I think you're gonna have some time with him in the near future. Like, the bricks were hard for me, and it was like the people didn't want me to continue to be great. Like, they were looking for a way to kick my cage and make me come out in a negative way. And so by the time I was 14, I was tired of being like a victim of the environment. And I stood up for myself. We don't have to go into that. But from then until I got baptized when I was 20 something, as a Christian, I just decided, like, anybody who figures they're going to take advantage of me, I'm running them over in the worst possible way. And I'm not proud of it, but that's what it was, right? And so that gave me, like, in a weird way, some confidence. And then when I became a believer in Christ, of course, he washed that so that it doesn't come out in the violent way that the city almost dictated. And what that does for me today is, even though I'm low key and background-ish, I know how to come forward when it's necessary without being timid anymore. And so when I got the mindset in around 1996 to change the world, whatever that meant, I didn't fully understand what I meant, but I knew I wanted to. God started to put some things in front of me, like writing. And then for the last 25 years of my life, I've been writing, and I'm probably written more articles for the particular magazine than anybody in history. And history for that magazine is since 1898. We're talking about a historic magazine. And I didn't even notice. Why? Because I'm a low-key kind of background guy, and I'm just plugging along. And then when media became a thing, like, I really wanted to be, because I grew up in the Oprah era, when she was Oprah Winfrey Show and she dethroned Donahue, like that time, I always looked and said, you know what, I want to do that, even though I'm an introvert. And, well, I couldn't do that, but every attempt that I made to go big, it didn't work out. And so God said, all right, this is what I have in front of you. You use these tools. So I did. I started out with tiny little tools like a Dell Axiom Pocket PC and a microphone board. It wasn't even a mixer from Radio Shack. And I launched a 1-hour program that was very successful way back in the day. And then as the technology advanced, and then this thing called podcasting started, I stopped being on other people's radio programs as much, because I was always on the radio. I had handlers. I was an author back in the day. I am still, but I used to be on other people's programs all the time. And I was like, I'm tired of being on other people's programs. I'm tired of being on television, other places. I need to do this myself. And then the internet blew up. And I was like, bet, this is what we're going to do. And in 2014, I launched that one program that I told you that's more successful than any of the others, but it failed for 3.5 years. I used everything that I knew that always worked, and it failed. And so God said, all right, after the almost 4 years were done, he said, 10 minutes every single day. And when I did that, in short order, the thing blew up. And I can tell you country by country what happened. But suffice it to say, having to struggle and fight and then use the gifts and skills that I developed over the years kind of coalesced, like they came together. And it was just like, okay, nobody can tell me that I can't reach the world, because I'm doing it, literally. 200, do you know, 200 radio stations? That's a lot of radio stations, Jess. Multiple platforms, not funneling through one of my little tiny platforms by myself. Nope, 30 platforms online. And some of them, their reach is crazy. And all I want to do is speak to the heart of the people to become the best versions of themselves and have a right relationship with God and with people. If I had to strip it down, that's all it is. But I wake up every day driven. So when I see Jessi, I see all the people that you're going to impact. And whoever's watching or listening, I'm thinking about you actively like, okay, so the time that we invest here, they're going to change somebody else's life. And so that's what I'm aiming for. That's the target I'm firing on every single time I put a mic or interact with people.
Word. That's what's up. That's dope. A few things that stuck out for me. The especially like that little switch that, I mean, you just made that one change. You tried something for 3.5 years and it didn't go the way that you wanted it to, and you made that one slight change, which was less. Y'all, keywords. And look, I'm talking to myself too. Doing less and putting it out, putting the content out in 10-minute increments. That's what blew you up. And
Crazy. And by the way, sorry for interrupting. That is a person who wasn't just trying. I had done very well at the formula prior to that. But this time, no go. No go. So I had to just sit and wait and see what God wanted.
So you was doing everything right. You was doing everything that it works because you already did it before.
That's right.
But it wasn't the right season and it wasn't the right time for that information to, like, for you to release that to the world in the way that you previously had been working and you saw fit. And what that kind of puts me in the mind frame of is thinking about some of the reasons why I launched the Everybody Can't Go brand. That really makes me think about like environment and holding on to old things. It's not to say that you're only letting go of things, environments, places, people because it's not good. It just may not be the right person or place for that actual time for you, because you already, like, you got the stats to prove it, you got the reach to prove it, that you, for a number of years, you were building this craft, working at this craft, building it out. And then it got to a certain point where God required more of you, where you needed to make a shift, and you were still doing the same thing that you had been doing, moving laterally, when it was like, oh yeah, you still doing this, I need you to do this. And it's like, wait, what? No, but this working good. And for 3.5 years, you was like, no, this worked before. So look, I'm going to just give it one more day. I'm going to just give it one more week. I'm going to just give it a couple more months, another year. And I know that this works. Did you ever have like or what was that moment at that 3.5, 4 year mark that finally, where you got like that light bulb that it's like, this does work, but it ain't working for this? Like, what was that light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, let me be clearer than I was.
Okay.
I knew almost immediately that it didn't work. So I stopped. I pushed pause. Because the way that I'm wired says don't waste time. Long story. That's how I'm wired. God created me on that. So I could see very early, because I knew what the trajectory of success looked like, because I'd done it so many times before. And I was like, oh, this is not it. So I let it rest. I didn't give up. I just stopped. I paused it. And then, God orchestrated some stuff. I moved to a whole new country. He orchestrated some things in my life to where, I started to get back into the mind frame of changing the world in this particular way again. And I was just like, man, I really want to do that thing. And it was around that same time when, in fact, I was teaching a series of Bible teachings. And for the first time I had heard this terminology. We trended on YouTube. There are people who get millions of views that don't trend. Trending is something you can't crack the algorithm. You don't know what that is. It's just, it happens based on who knows what. And we trended at that time, 2018, behind Alkaline, Popcorn. What's the dude from the basketball team in the U.S. that they used to beat up on LeBron and them, the Golden State Warriors? They used to beat up.
Oh, Steph Curry?
Steph and his wife, there was something really incredible going on in their lives on Ellen DeGeneres. So it was like behind them. And here comes this guy teaching the Bible. That's me. And we trended behind them. And then it was that time that God said, 10 minutes every day. That thing that you love, forget the 1 hour weekly thing. Forget the formula. He didn't say all those words, but that's what that part meant. Forget the formula that you have tested and proven and been successful at. Forget trying to do it like the two other large entities were doing the same thing. Don't do that. It's 10 minutes and it's every day. And I was like, bet. I didn't even second guess it because I'm built for every day. He created me to be an everyday kind of guy. Like, that's just how I'm wired. And so I was like, bet. Every day, 10 minutes. Let's go. And in a short period of time, we didn't get to the radio status yet, but in a short period of time, we blew up in West Africa, multiple countries in West Africa, in India, in certain parts of the United States of America, all over the Caribbean. And then it was like almost, I don't want to misuse the terminology for viral, but it had a viral element of people couldn't stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just almost like they couldn't stop sharing. And I was just like, God, this is so good because I can't claim intelligence on this one. All I can claim is obedience. Like he said, do it, and I did it. And wow, look at the outcome. And I haven't become complacent. That was just a starting point. And I was like, oh, so this is possible? Let's go. Let's go. It just makes me more dogged in reaching the planet. Yeah.
So another nugget that I got out of that with you expounding on it, I like that you pointed out that you actually took a pause and completely stopped. So it's like when you saw the first red flag, you was like,
Everybody can't go, Jess.
You was like, look, I'm gonna cut it right here. And you didn't end up wasting a lot of your resources, time being the most valuable. Don't forget that, y'all. Time, the most valuable asset you have. And putting any other resources into that until it was time to move on that. And I think a lot of times, when we're a couple weeks ago, we came off of the Write the Vision workshop, where we're looking so far forward into our future with writing our vision down and working through all of these different layers, and that thing can grow and be shaped and a strategy be like formed from that over time. But like sometimes we'll think, because we're rushing it, it's like, oh, well, I had this vision or I have this dream, I have this goal, and it's like, I'm gonna work on it right now. And it's like, yeah, go hard, go all in. And just because we go all in right that second, if it's not time, we can have the tendency to get discouraged and not just pause the thing. It's like, oh, that must not have been for me. And so we throw the whole thing away. We just throw it in the trash. And sometimes, honestly, I feel like if people aren't in the right places or spaces, and sometimes if you don't have the right positivity poured into you and the right teaching, if you're not, if your ear isn't open to hearing God be like, hey, get that out of that garbage can, put it on the shelf. Like, that's for later. That, we can throw away things that just because it wasn't meant for 2022. That may be something that you were supposed to plant those seeds and, let that bamboo effect happen. It wasn't ever meant to sprout until 2026, but you don't want to water it. You don't want to you either want to beat it all the way into the ground and then give up on it, or at the sight of a red flag, just let it go and leave it. And so, what was your mindset as you were able to, or is it just the way that you're wired and your preference? What made it it sounds simple for you to just be like, red flag, pause this, I'm gonna leave it there and I'm going to move on until it's time. And then you had that obedience in there. What is it about you that kind of made it like that, just 1, 2, 3, just made it that simple?
Yeah, I'm semi-logical, almost crazy logical, but not to the fault, right? So waste bothers my brain. I don't waste food, which is why I live in the Caribbean. And pause, and don't please y'all don't misunderstand me. You know, I'm 50, and so my wife is a Jamaican, and we live in Jamaica, right? There is still sort of an expectation of the wife, if we're eating together, to serve the food to the husband. Well, I don't do that, not for the reason people might not expect. Simone is heavy handed. Like, she'll give me too much of everything. And I'm like, no, I'm good. So for the last 22 years, I get my own food, not only because of that, but that's one of the things in the context of what we're saying, because I despise waste. Like, if you put it on my plate, I'll eat it. And I'm like, boy, I don't want to eat all of that. I don't like wasting time. I don't waste words. I don't waste interactions with people. Waste makes me itch. And so immediately I thought, this isn't working. Press pause. Don't give up. All in at the same time. This is not working. Press pause. Don't give up. All in at the same time. And that's what it is. God created me that way. I'm a low key fighter. Like if you don't kick my cage, you'll never know. So I'm not looking for a fight. Like, I'm not a competitive person. I'm not thinking about who's doing what around me. But at the same time, when I have my teeth into something, I'm not giving it up. I'm literally not going to give it up. So I didn't know what would change, when it would change, but I knew it had to change because I knew I didn't put this thing in me. God put it in me. You see, one of the things in the context of your passion that everybody can't go, these were harder for me. I aligned myself for years with people who are super dope, Jess. And in key areas that I was in, whatever that meant. And 100% of the time, they ran out of gas. And I'm talking about some people you might even know, like they're famous. Some people are, I'm talking about people that are prominent in what they do and extra dope. But the one thing that none of the people that I aligned myself with had was the energy to continue. I always inadvertently outran them. I always inadvertently outlasted. And they would lose focus, lose passion, lose interest in things that they were already doing. It wasn't like I was inventing stuff. It's stuff that was like Quest and I, we hitched our carts together. He was already on marriage, so was I. Kind of like that. And they would just run out of gas. And I'm like, God, what is this? But everybody can't go. So it took some years for me to accept that. That part was hard for me. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, I'm already an introvert. I already could kind of do without a whole bunch of people. So this is just making me worse. That was like a self-fulfilling prophecy in my mind. Like, bro, like, so you really do have to go back to self-reliance, which didn't bother me. It bothered me that I knew that that was not growth. I liked relying on me, but I knew that I could not grow while relying on me. That's what was bothering my brain.
That's a good one. That's real good. And that was actually part of what I had to deal with in my own journey was learning to trust people again. And not realizing that I put too much trust in people for certain things in the first place. So where I actually started, I made good use of my time. I wasn't being lonely. I was alone. I was in isolation, but I made sure that while I was in that time of isolation, I used that for my transformation. And I started with like, what could I have done differently? Or how could I have chosen differently? What things did I accept that it's like, at that first red flag, I could have LDH'd it. I could have just cut it, you know? And I definitely had to like when you are self-efficient, self-reliant, you can do all of this stuff, you know, on your own by yourself. it definitely was a certain level that I had to get to in maturity that you know, for a minute, this was happening for me in the era of like no new friends, no new friends. And it's like, no, me and my crew, we rock solid, everything's tight. Like until it wasn't. And then it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm gonna put me and self on back. I'm gonna go ahead by myself. And like as I was transitioning into the ETA community and starting to find out, you know, it wasn't just, you know, E online and me watching his videos that, you know,
Shout to E online.
shout out, yeah, shout out to ET, shout out to YouTube ET. That's where I met him on the YouTube, the YouTube, okay? But like that was just like at this point, that was kind of like the sticker over all these other people in this broader community where it's like, oh, I'm not wilding. I don't want too much. There are other people that think that way. That's not gonna be like, Jess, you doing too much. You want too much. Like, why so big? You off the block? Ain't that enough? And it's like, why just because I got from there? Why should I like? It's like you almost telling me as long as it's good enough. And I'm like, I've never been striving for just good enough. I want to live my life happy and I want to fulfill my vision, fulfill my purpose, and the things that I've seen for what my purpose is supposed to be. And when I actually took the time to sit my butt in a chair, get the pen, y'all saw me take a little note down to the side earlier, get the actual pen to write my vision and what that looked like. It wasn't until I did that I was like, man, even though from the outside looking in, I'm doing good enough for me to get to the end of what this vision is that I wrote. I have to do so much in between to build up all of these other things, including myself. And another thing that it made me think of in transitioning into why I call you one of the love gurus. The other thing that it put me in a mind frame of, and I'm not sure where in your age range did it happen for you, but for me, one of the things that I realized was if I wasn't going to be open to trusting new people and bringing people in and like getting to that next level within myself, I was like, dang, I ain't gonna never be ready to get married, like for real, kind of get married. And when I say for real, kind of get married, if you guys haven't seen on previous episodes, the way that I mention it, I'm not talking about married just to be married. I don't want to be somebody's may as well wife. Yeah, I just been around long enough that it's like, well, may as well because she ain't
got nothing better to do, I guess. Okay, yeah, what you doing? Nothing. Me neither. Let's do it.
Yep. And also, when I say a for real marriage, I mean one where we are healthy, wealthy, and whole. And the well part is really, you may as well just connect it right on to whole. And being like a whole individual, him and me, and we both at 120%, and then coming together, not 50-50, we coming together both some halves, trying to make one thing. And I also found that even in like starting to follow teaching materials or like just things to think about, there's so much just junk out there. And I'm like, okay, well, I already see some areas that I'm gonna have to grow so that I can be prepared. And I can only read Proverbs 31 so many times. And that's actually how I ended up finding the Marriage Ain't for Suckers podcast a few years ago. As I was looking for what I feel to be reliable and credible sources, specifically for the type of marriage that I would like to enter into and what I would like to have. And so for you, as you were having like that mindset shift that you were like, okay, well, I can do it by myself. Was your wife always there during that time? And was it compartmentalized to just like your associates and your friends? Or did you like have that mindset like overall because you were single at the time?
No, it had nothing to do with whether I was single or not. Okay. It just had to do with how I'm wired in the environment in which I grew. So in terms of relationship, like romantic relationships, I had never seen in my family unit a successful one. Let me give you a case in point. Yeah, shout to the pastors out there. Some people think I'm a pastor, but I'm not. I just love the Bible, and I've been sharing the word for many, many, many years, right? But my grandfather was a pastor in Hartford, Connecticut in the 1930s, and a little before too. Well, can I say the S word here? It's not a bad word. The other one, it's 3 letters. Can I say that?
I think so. I don't think you
Okay.
two will ding us. I think we'll
Okay.
be
Yeah. So my pastor grandpa sexed his church secretary. He got her pregnant. And if you're Bible people, almost like Judah and his daughter-in-law, like that kind of style, like he did it and then try to act like he ain't do it, kind of style like that, right? So he sexes her, she gets pregnant, and then he kicks her out of the church. So that's one pastoral mess that happened. Boom. So 1947, my mommy's born. He never put his name on her birth papers. And so all her life, she's trying to fit in somewhere. She has a brother. One of the brothers was a pastor. I won't get into his business, but that didn't work out too well. And then she messed around and married a dude that came out of the Air Force who became a pastor. And guess what? This pastor messed up his life too and his family's life. Now, this is not I'm not firing on pastors. I'm going somewhere. So I told you I got baptized. So I was 23 when I got baptized. And I noticed very quickly that I had a lot of the same gifts that my dad had. I'm saying in a positive sense. They got divorced when I was 23 and I was so excited. 13. I was so excited. I did not want to be in the house with them no more. Okay. Now I'm 23. I get baptized and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I have a lot of his gifts on a positive side. And I was like, okay, so if I have his gifts, then I might have his problems too. So maybe I need to be aware of this stuff. And to make a long story short, I decided that we were going to break the cycle where I stand. I'm talking about aunties, uncles, cousins, grandparents. I had not seen a successful relationship. And I was like, this is where it stops. And then, not when I was 23, but a couple years later, Simone and I, we were friends in university for 11. So we were friends in university. So we had been friends 11 years before we got married. Like, that was my homegirl. And she loved me so much, apparently, she tried to give me one of her cousins. I know that sounds weird, like give you a cousin, but and we tried it. It just didn't work out. But that's how much Simone loved me. And I loved her, but just not in the way that you see romance. But long story short, I almost got married one other time, 25 or 6 years ago. That didn't work out. And I took a 2-year break from relationships of that type. And then I remember saying to my mom, you know what? I don't know about this marriage stuff not because I had been soured on it or it's, what's the way, how do you say it? Not because it went sour in my mind, but because I was like, so how do I get to know? No, identify, get to know, become serious, and then choose to get married. Because I wasn't about that playhouse stuff, that whatever I did before I got baptized, I wasn't about that life. This had to be holy. It needed to be pure. It needed to be real. And I was just like, dude, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then God was like, you got a friend. After 2 years, you got a friend. So we got to skip a lot of the stuff. I saw her, Simone, after not seeing her for a couple of years. I saw her in June. I asked her to be my girlfriend in October, woman friend. And then in December, I proposed to her. August, we got married. Like, we got to skip because that's my people's. Like, I already know her. I lived in the Maryland, DC, Maryland, Virginia area at the time. And it was so dope because, like, you can't tell me nothing about her. You can't tell her anything about me. She knew me before I knew Christ. She knows me now. She loved me before I knew Christ. She loves me now. I knew her before Christ. I love her then, I love her now. And so we got married 22 plus years ago, and it's been the best thing ever for me. And we did break the cycle. It's great relationship, great marriage. Like, someone taught us that our marriage was supposed to be a ministry, and we took that thing to heart because we know Jessi's watching. And it's like, if we mess this up, then we can mess up Jessi and her friends and her neighbors and the people that love Jessi and the people on the Everybody Can't Go program and everybody around it, because we jacked up. So we decided that wasn't something we wanted to take on. So we decided that with Christ, we're going to be successful. And that's what it's been.
Well, usually I don't say amen here, but I am today. All right. Because that was an amen moment.
Yeah.
And the way that you talked about like the spread of it, unfortunately, that's how I see so much negativity surrounding relationships spread, like literally like wildfire, to the point where, like, if I got enough mental capacity for it, I just read through and I start to like diagnose people based upon what they said. It's like, oh, well, you said this, really, your feelings are hurt about this, this, and this. You need to take a hiatus because you need some healing. You need to take some time alone, but you won't be lonely. But it looks like you need to learn that. So one of the and I think that there's a that's a powerful thing, is having that time alone, like literally like by yourself. Because a lot of times you'll see that people and I like that you pointed out that you're it wasn't a sour in your mind about the idea of marriage. You just knew that you needed to like take that pause, take that break. And when you came to that realization, you spent some time alone. And this has been coming up just in conversation recently for the past I would say maybe month or so, just in different places and different people that I talk to. I find myself having to repeat and remind people that and I actually did an entire excerpt about it in the book. So when you guys are reading through Everybody Can't Go, I do take you into a deeper dive on this concept that just because you are alone, that doesn't mean you're lonely. How can you be lonely and you sitting right there? Is you, yourself, and your form of I. And for me, I mean, there's me, myself, and I. Then I have self that actually answers me. When I say self, self be like, and we have to have some conversation sometimes, all right? But not only that, when I find myself just speaking out loud, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I forgot. Not just talking to myself. If it like, it's no secret here that I believe in God. I'm a Christian. So yeah, when I'm talking out loud, it's like, yep, nope, God here too. So how can I be lonely? And I actually had to go to the dictionary as well as go to the Bible. And I noticed it was actually in the back of the summer glossary in the back of my Bible that I noticed alone and lonely were two different words, two different spots, but the scriptures that it led me to, it was two different sets of scriptures. So I was like, wait, dang, because even I myself, I sat there and I'm like, you know what? There are some things that are not working. There are some things that I do not like. In addition to changing myself, I'm like, you know what? Maybe let me just take a step back, because I don't want to say maybe this isn't for me, because it wouldn't be a part of my vision if it wasn't for me. I'm like, you know, it was very clear what Paul was supposed to be doing, and it wasn't being married. Okay. So I'm like, let me take a step back, because it has to be something more that I'm supposed to grow through, or some other knowledge that I'm supposed to gain, or ways to apply it. And it was changing for me in my mental as well as emotionally, that distinction between, like, just because I'm here by myself, I'm not lonely. I have things to do. There are things that I'm supposed to be pouring into myself. There are ways that I'm growing that I literally wouldn't be able to do if I'm not alone. I am free of distractions. There are certain activities and things to be done that need to be done without distraction and for a prolonged period of time. Not, oh, I'll just block out every Thursday and not go on a date on Thursday so that I can work on this thing. There were some things both externally and internally that needed to be worked on in that isolation. And so, while using the term isolation, it could be positive and it could be negative, but it really depends on us. It depends on our mindset. It depends on what we're feeding ourselves. And it also depends on what is that self talk. Because I didn't realize for how long I was just like, dang, what if I end up alone and lonely? And I never thought about it that literally I was just automatically saying that in my head. But when I actually assess, like, are you really lonely? I'm like, when did I have time to be lonely? You've been in a book, at a computer, in prayer, or doing some activity in your house, or like doing something. When did you have time to be lonely? And that's when I had to realize some of the things that are in our subconscious that will go on autoplay. It's like, do you really think that about yourself? Or do you hear that so much that it's become your automatic thought? And now you're thinking this about yourself, but that's not really how you feel. You're making yourself feel like that because you continuously repeat what you've heard, and it's external sources coming to you. And so I really like how you talked about taking that 2-year hiatus. Would you care to share, like, what were some of the things that you did during like your 2 years of stepping back from relationship that like ultimately prepared you to be a good husband, to
Mm-hmm.
be like, that's two different things: being a good man, being a good husband, and even being a good dad. Like, a lot of times we're putting out into the world that we want that trifecta all together, but it is very evident in a lot of our communities that you can be good in one or two of those areas, not necessarily all three. So what were
Yeah.
some of the things that you did to like prepare?
The first thing I did, because I had been preparing for marriage before, and I read in an old book. I mean, really an old book, not the Bible, like an old book, that if you are preparing for marriage and you pray whatever number of times, then double it.
Mm.
So I did that. And then I didn't get married, but I kept that with me. The next thing I did was surround myself with two couples in particular, two sets of married people. Both couples were a little older than me. Maybe 6 years was the eldest of the two in the two couples. And they watched my back, and I was very popular in where I was, and in the religious community I was popular too. And so I had what I called, and I made it up, the sacred seat, right? That seat next to me in church. And it was like, because I didn't know it was the sacred seat until somebody sat in the chair. And then everybody was like, who's she? And it's like, she's somebody sitting in the seat next to me in church. But it became a thing. And I
Mm.
was just like, uh-oh, oh boy. Okay. So surround yourself with these couples. And one of the men taught me during that time, he said, become the best you can be. In this interim period, we don't know how long it's going to be. But while this is happening, become the best you can be. And I was like, that. So I focused more on developing. I was already there, but now I knew that there was a goal. If I'm going to be a good husband, then let me go back to Adam and Eve when they were created. No, when God created them. He created Adam, and when he was done creating him at some point, we don't know how long it took, he said it's not good that this man should be alone. And he said he's going to make a helper who will complete him. And so he puts Adam to sleep. But prior to that, it's God and Adam. He puts Adam to sleep. He creates Eve, long story short. And now it's Eve and God together by themselves. Adam is asleep. And then he wakes Adam back up and he brings them together. So independent of one another, they had their experience with God. And when they came both to consciousness, now it's the three of them, God, Adam, and Eve, which is why I was really proud of you when you were talking about wholeness earlier, because people say, and they, I guess they mean well, like, how's your better half? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't have a problem with the better part, but the half part, I got a lot of problems with, because I'm not a half of nothing. I'm a
Okay.
complete somebody because
Mm-hmm.
God created me this way, and I'm developing as a whole individual, so that when I'm with Simone, I'm not a parasite of Simone. I don't drain Simone. Simone does not drain me because she's a complete and whole person. And so the two of them now come together and they become one, a compound unity. They become one. They're unified in all of the ways that matter. And now they can change the world. And when they have children, it just gets better and better. Yes, things go wrong, but that's because people make choices. But in our cases, when we decide that we're going to be whole people or complete people with God, and then we are intending to be with people who are also whole people with God, and then you come together, you cannot lose, no matter what the trials are, the difficulties, the challenges, the unexpected stuff. It doesn't matter, because we're complete people and we trust God together. So that kind of stuff came into my life in a big way during that intervening period of 2 years. And we just been practicing that thing ever since. I did get married and now we're still together.
That's what's up. That's super dope. So I know that it's a little pocket of something that we might be missing, because I grew up in church. It sounds like you grew up in church as well. What suggestion would you have for anyone who, if they didn't grow up in church, or they kind of like, they know of God but they don't necessarily like have that type of introduction or the beginnings of a relationship, and they're like, okay, well, I don't really do the church thing, but how do I start, just jumping into it? Like, what would be some things that you would suggest for somebody who they might not go to church, they don't have that type of connection, so that they can get started? And by all means, this ain't me telling y'all to go to church, because you ain't got to be going to church to be praying. The
Mm-hmm.
point is the connection with God, and
Yeah.
that is part of for me what has been successful. Some of the couples that I look up to, and really that they have the type of relationship dynamic that I'm like, oh, that is good. Those are good principles. Those are good habits. Those are good behaviors. Those are good values. And so I'm not trying to like drive you guys to church or anything like that. Um, but shout out to my church, ABOC, if you're interested. But like, no, that's like not what I'm trying to drive you to, especially if you are new to this thing, because you go out here trying to look, it be doctrine all over the place. And a lot of times we get a relationship with God mixed up with doctrine, because that's what they always be saying. And really they ain't opened up the book and read it. They got the 20 scriptures memorized. That book like 1,000 pages long, and the pages is paper thin, like thinner than paper. They like tissue paper thin. Okay. And this is why I would encourage you to, if you would like to, or if you are interested, to start that path on your own, but with like that just you and God thing. So if somebody was trying to get started, like literally just them and God on their own, what would be a place that that you would recommend for somebody to start?
Yeah. Well, I went to church as a little boy because my parents told me to. But remember, there was a broken, jacked up relationship with a dude that said he was a pastor, but it kind of didn't work out. So I didn't know God at all until I was in my 20s. So let me just put that right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's that. But, Paul, one of the people who wrote in the Bible, really gives a good explanation. Like, he talks about how when you're in nature, you see things about God because he reveals himself there. The way that animals and creatures have symbiotic relationships where one survives because the other one is there. That's a godly order. The fact that the sun rises and sets, well, in the places that it rises and sets. There's some weird places on the planet that it takes months, but most places it rises and sets predictably, morning and evening. That divine order and the fact that you can't hide from the sun, it's always there, whether it's hot or it's not feeling hot. That's divine order. So we can recognize in the words of Paul and a guy named David, like God's presence in what he created. So that's the first thing, like observing the beauty and the interesting elements of nature. I live in nature. If I had an external camera, I'd show you, like, it might as well be in the jungle right now, outside of my studio, right out that window. So there's that. And then what God does, because he loves us so much, is he says, okay, some of you may get lost in nature. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you that. And then I'm also going to educate your conscience. Like, it's not okay to slap a random person on the bus, even if it feels like they need to get slapped. Like, pause. Right? That it's not okay to kill your parents. That it's not okay to see somebody hungry and just leave them that way when you have it within your power to assist. And so God educates our conscience, even if we're not understanding that that's the reality, and say there are other people on planet Earth that we need to relate to in a certain way. And so don't stifle kindness. Like, don't stifle being grateful. Someone does something for you, then demonstrate gratitude. That is another attribute of God's character that he reveals. And along that pathway, then Paul goes to this one last drop-off point. Nature, experiencing God there, experiencing God through him educating your conscience, even if you're not aware. And then he moves to the gusto. And then he begins to reveal himself in the way that we know, like overtly. Like, he manifests himself in the fact that he loves us so much that he didn't leave us here to die in sin. And so the pursuit of God in my mind is salvation, or the way to eternal life, like continuing to seek God and speaking to God and saying, whatever you say, if you show me this direction, then I'll follow. And as we get into that habit and we begin to understand that he's at work, then whatever he teaches us, we'll do it. I'm a Bible reader for that reason, because I want to know more. And that's what I do. I want to understand some of his thoughts. And I know that a lot of those thoughts are in the Bible. So that's where it is for me. It's the church is a set of people who claim that we know God. Some of us do, some of us don't. So it's a good environment once we understand what the purpose of it is. But we all coming together, like Adam by himself with God, Eve by herself with God, like Jessi by herself with God, way over wherever you are, me by myself with God, wherever I am. And when we come together into that environment where we worship God together, then it's like, whoa, this is even better. Even if it's on Zoom, like, it's like, whoa, Jessi's experience with God, my experience with God, and we get that together, you can't lose. It's a community of love, and it's a community of winning, even when we have challenges, because we will have challenges. So I don't know if that made sense to you. For people who are open to the scriptures now, what I call the scriptures, but the Bible, I would say starting with the book of John. Reading through the book of John and saying, God, I don't know what I'm looking at here, but could you open up my mind, please? Because he's the guy who demonstrated love in a way that most of the Bible writers didn't. Like, it was some special stuff with John. He understood love. So that is that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Like, those things draw us into a closer connection with God.
And that was so poetic, the way that you said that. I was thinking about that like halfway through. I was like, this is like art and poetry right here. And it made me think of just all of those times where I may not have been necessarily praying, but how you were talking about being in nature, just being at peace. And not only when I'm by myself and like going for like a walk in the like purposely going for a walk in the woods. Maybe not the jungle or forest or whatever, but I know you got some woods or something by you. Especially in the spring and fall when there's different little animals and critters, and the just the different sounds that you hear from just the animals, like just the animals, the trees rustling, sticks cracking under your feet. And even though it's like, ugh, I don't want no mosquitoes all on me, and like, what if a tick get on my ankle and all of these other things. But like when you're just walking and ignoring, like, just ignore the buzz part and just walking and just listening, there's literally like a feeling of peace. And I can not just mentally but physically, I can feel just like yes. We talked a couple weeks ago about take that deep breath, like, and you taking that deep breath so that you can reset yourself. Just pay attention to how you feel without just stopping to take that deep breath when you're in nature. It's almost like you have no choice but to breathe deeper. And there's a calming effect about that. For some people, your place, it may be by the beach. Sometimes, we'll put a little drink on that. And so we're not as in tune to, what the sand feels like on our feet, what the sun rays feel like on our skin, what it's doing for our auditory sensory, just hearing the different waves crashing and how it makes different noises and things like that. And even just looking at the water and the skyline on the shore and different things like that. So I would encourage you to like go to that quiet place, wherever is that place in nature. And you don't even necessarily have to just, start trying to pray out loud or start trying to talk. You can take it as fast or as slow as you'd like to.
What's cool? Like when I used to live in DC, I actually lived in DC when it was the murder capital. Oh my gosh. I'm like, is it me? Like, am I the one that's causing this problem? But I actually lived, when I lived there, I lived I lived on 14th Street, 14th and Sheridan. And the next block over was 16th Street. They called that the Gold Coast. And then there's this song, R&B song, Rock Creek Park. So I lived right outside of Rock Creek Park, even though I was in the city. And I would go into the park and there'd be like stones in this brook. I guess it's a brook. I'm a city dude, so I'm not sure what it was called, but it was like water, but you wouldn't drown. And I would hop, skip, and jump and then go sit down on the stone. That's when I wasn't married and I was trying to get my life right when that relationship didn't go right. And I would hear the water passing the stones and just experience God after a crazy day of work, because I worked in mental health at that time, no pun intended. But it was hard. And I would just come home and go to the park, get onto that stone in the middle of the water, and then just like you said, bring the levels down. And I promise you, that was very, not just therapeutic, but it made a deposit into my character. Because really and truly, I'll tell you a secret. Like, don't tell nobody. Like I live in Jamaica, right? And like things can go really south depending on who's who on the road at any time. A bunch of dudes jump out with AKs, I'm probably not gonna get on the ground. I don't care what they say. I'm not saying you should live this way, but that's how I am. Like, get on the ground. You get on the ground. Like, what are you talking about get on the ground? Because you got an AK, I'm supposed to get on the ground because you said so? I don't think so, bro. Try again. Squeeze that thing or be quiet. That's me. But when I first moved to I moved to rural America, and my driveway was long, 200 and some feet in West Virginia, and a tree moved in the night. I was like, whoa, what is that? What's that? What's that? I would rather hear somebody chamber around but then I started to realize that's because I'm broken. Like, oh, wait a minute. Those sounds in nature are positive. The darkness isn't as dark as I thought it was. And then I began to appreciate what was happening around me. And when it would rain, when the Bible says that God takes care of the birds, I would see, like, when the rain was about to stop, then these birds would appear out of nowhere and start pecking at the ground and pulling up worms. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is literal. So I had to kind of unlearn a lot of the environment around me and becoming the best me I could be and experience more aspects of God's creation so that I could be a calmer, more rational, better person to be around. And everybody couldn't go. When we moved from Maryland, like suburbs, I lived in the city, then I lived in the suburbs. We moved from there when we were married and moved to rural West Virginia. People were like, are y'all crazy? No, everybody just can't go. Y'all on something else. When we left there and we moved to Jamaica, are y'all crazy? No, no.
And living the life in paradise.
That quiet bush that's out there is telling me that I'm in the right place. I'm just saying. I'm not saying all of Jamaica's this way, but Jamaica pretty, man. It's pretty. And there are many pretty places around the world, if even a botanical gardens. I used to go to a botanical gardens in Wheaton, Maryland, just because I didn't have anywhere else to go. And it was just so pretty. Inside of those gates, it was just so beautiful. And I could just ease down. And a lot of people couldn't appreciate it, but that's because we were not on the same page. So you think I would marry somebody like that? No diss. I'm just saying we don't have the same views. We don't have the same thing on our minds. Simone is with me everywhere I go. See her back there? There she is. She's always with me. If I'm having a coaching session or I'm preaching or I'm talking to you, Jess, she's with me. People need to know that, like, we go everywhere together. Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Okay, so we've been rapping for about an hour, so I know that I'm going to have you back on. I know that I will. So we will go ahead and do a quick cut to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for coming through and dropping so much knowledge and so many nuggets. And I know that there's definitely some spots in here where you guys are going to run this back. You're going to clip it. There was a few moments in there where I'm like, ooh, this is good for a morning meditation right here.
Let's go.
While you're taking that walk through the forest, all right? So if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know what you think in the comments. And if there's anything that stuck out to you that you like, you know what, no, that's really good. I'm going to try that. I'm going to use that. Let me know. I want to know, what do you guys think? And I want to know what information are you guys seeing is valuable? What things are you able to take away and apply it immediately? What things are you able to apply in a week, in 2 weeks from now? And then what things can you also apply moving forward once you're ready? Because if you ain't ready, get ready so you can stay ready. All right. So thank you so much, LDH, for coming on with us. I so appreciate you. And let us know where we can find you on socials.
Listen, I don't use my socials. I'm out there. I am L. David Harris. You can find me, but I don't really post anymore. I used to build everybody's brand. I don't do it like that anymore. So you can find me, but better off, just put in a search engine. Google loves me. Put in a search engine, L. David Harris, and you'll find whatever I think will be useful to you. L.
Boom.
David Harris. Do that, and maybe you'll find something fruitful.
Okay. So that's the wrap, y'all. And thank you so much. He said, look, I'm big time. Google me. All right. So thank you so much for coming on with us. And we will catch you in another few episodes. I know that we'll have to have you back dropping some more knowledge on the audience.
Let's go.
I appreciate you.